Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the show. I am thrilled, honored, really excited to have James Damian on the show here. He is the founder of James Damian Brand Integration Strategies, a creative strategy consultant for Gap International, uh, former chairman of the board of one of my favorite companies in America, where I have spent many March Madnesses watching basketball games with friends and family and eating wings and lots of laughs and amazing memories. Former chairman of the board of Buffalo Wild Wings. And then also prior to that, the chief design officer for Best Buy, what actually brought him to the state of Minnesota. James, welcome to the show. Super excited to have you.
Hey, thanks, Kip. It's a pleasure to be here.
You're welcome. Yeah. So yeah, maybe let's kick it off with your origin story. I know we talked about Best Buy bringing you to Minnesota, but maybe just origin story, personally, professionally. I know you have, from our past conversations, a thrilling and interesting and unique background. So would love to share that with our viewers here.
Thanks. It all started for me in Philadelphia. This is where I'm born and raised. And from Philadelphia, throughout schooling, my families on both sides were interested in the history and the arts, not only of the city, but is grounded in music. And that led me on a path throughout high school to really uh, engage myself in the arts. And that is music and art and design was always a part of my background. And my mom and dad had a tremendous influence on me in that regard. Mom on the history side of it, my dad was a haberdashery in the menswear business, so he taught me about good manners and how to dress. Uh, and that set me on my path. And I was fortunate enough to be sponsored into Westminster Choir College in Princeton. And that's where I was introduced to conducting. Um, and I really, conducting has been a major part of my life as a leader. And it taught me one critical thing is that a conductor cannot play every instrument
Mm.
and that he has to rely on the genius that lives inside every player. And his job is to bring the best out and to guide them, not to micromanage them with the baton. On one hand, it takes care of tempo. On the other hand, it takes care of feeling. And I think that's a great metaphor for life, that the humanity, which is feeling, has got to be interdependent with the mechanics, the utility, and the systems of life. And conducting has been that for me. But I also was humbled by the talent, and I realized that yeah, I could probably teach theory and classes, but that's not what I wanted to do. I really wanted to be a practitioner of some sort. And one summer, my girlfriend, now my wife,
Huh.
said you should come to New York and test your skills in design. And I did. I followed her lead, and I've been following her lead ever since.
Oh, that's amazing.
And I went to FIT, the Fashion Institute of Technology, and I majored in exhibition design. And I fell in love with New York, my wife,
Mm.
and the fashion industry itself. And I started out as a window designer on Fifth
Mm.
Avenue. And from there, well, that was I thought it was a plan, but then life has a way of surprising us all.
Sure. That's incredible. Incredible.
So
and what, yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I got to start in department stores when department stores were really in their heyday. And I learned so much from some great leaders and great merchants and fashion directors, um, and understood the beauty of concept development and putting things together, the bits and pieces of a wardrobe that would be an assembly of a whole look. And that has been the foundation for my design leadership throughout. Not just bringing people together, but more importantly, bringing people together from every background, every discipline, and integrating it in a collaborative manner so that we collectively is greater than me.
That's incredible. You're kind of bringing tears to my eyes as you're describing this with such authenticity and passion. That's amazing.
Oh, well, uh, use the Kleenex. Feel
Yeah.
free.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, but keep going. I don't know. You're on a roll. This is amazing.
Well, I really just wanted to stay in the windows. Why?
Mhm.
Because it's writing yourself into the story that you have to tell. And first, I must please myself in order to please my public.
Mm.
And in order to please the public, one has got to be able to visually tell a story, stop people because you only have like 3 to 5 seconds to capture their attention and hopefully invite them into the store. So the windows were a magnet. And the window on the website today is just that as well,
Sure.
to pull. So the concept of telling stories is so very important. And to use tools like a sense of humor, whimsy, and use the elements of nature, and compose them in such a way that I've just got to stop and check this out, and the same thing with the digital interface today, because there's so much competition out there and you're all grasping for attention, to invite people in to the story that you wish to tell. But somebody else had another plan for me.
Huh.
They saw that I had something there, and they pulled me into the interiors. Now, I
Mm.
started at B. Altman and Company on Fifth Avenue, which was a carriage trade emporium with some of the greats on the avenue, from 34th and 5th all the way up to 59th and 5th at Bergdorf Goodman. There was such creative competition on the avenue. And that competition actually stirred up and challenged your imagination to find another story,
Huh.
capture the attention of potential customers. So they pulled me into the interiors, and little did I know that somebody else had a plan for me that I didn't know about. And I had some great mentors. Um, and those mentors kind of guided me into, you would be better bringing people together as a leader. So that was a setting sail on my executive training and leadership development, um, in a high-end specialty fashion retailer.
That's amazing. I literally have chills going up and down my spine as you're talking about this.
Oh, it's just a story of a display man that just so happened to go from the windows to the boardroom. What's so weird about that?
Yeah, right.
I
Oh,
certainly, hey, I was not the architect of it, let me tell you.
yeah. It's amazing how people can just pluck you out of thin air in some ways and just see your potential and your gifts that you don't even realize, but that third person can just see that in you and draw that out.
I'm glad you brought that up, Kip, because mentorship is so
Yes.
vitally important. And people see things in us that we cannot see in ourselves. And you've got to be open and willing to follow it, and not just trust it, I guess.
Uh-huh.
When it happens, it's happening for a reason. You may not know what it's all about, but you just have to follow it. You have to trust it. And I would suggest that to every young person that's picking a path in their education or their vocations, to just, you have to love it. And through love of it, great things happen.
Huh.
Surprise
Huh.
appears at your doorstep when you least expect it. I know my wife did that for me because I
Mm-hmm.
had no idea. And she obviously saw something in me that I was unsure of. And the same thing goes with some of the great mentors that I've had along the way. And my message to the audience is trust it, um, and be open to possibility.
Yes.
Because if you're open to possibility, serendipity will
Huh.
occur.
Yes. Oh. Oh, so okay. So you've been brought into the store. Your leadership potential has been noticed. What happens next?
Um, I always, and my wife will attest to this, underestimate myself.
Hmm.
And there's this natural tendency of, are you sure you can do this? Because now you have a responsibility, no matter how big or small. You're working with people and you're becoming um, their mentor in some way, some fashion. You're guiding them. You're bringing them together so that we work together well. And working together well, for me, is the definition of culture. And I
Hmm.
can't underestimate the power of culture. Um, what I've learned along the way through the school of hard knocks
Huh.
is that, on one hand, culture is capable of greatness, while on the other hand, it's the enemy of change.
Yes.
And those two live together within any organization, any system where people are working together. And one has got to be cognizant of that so that we can navigate through the potential rough waters or gaps that keep people apart. So, in a way, you're a conductor,
Uh-huh.
right? And that's my
Yes.
metaphor for leadership, because the conductor's responsibility is to bring people together so that they can play together in
Huh.
an incredible manner. So that's what set me on my path. And I've worked for some great department stores along the way. And um, I thoroughly enjoyed the idea that you're creating a customer experience. And a customer experience, for better or worse, is the embodiment of the brand that you're working with and for and through. And we can't underestimate the power of that, because it creates a, a real challenge for the leader, um, to make sure that no one's left behind. And what I mean by that is that when you're in a meeting of any sort, there's always the ones that are quiet,
Mm-hmm.
and you have to look for it, because embedded in that quiet voice is brilliance,
Huh.
but you have to encourage it to come out. Some people are just not comfortable, and they choose to sit in the stands by themselves. And the leader's role is to make sure that everybody is heard. And going through the design thinking process, which wasn't called that when I was in school,
Uh-huh.
I'm glad at least they created a label for it, because it's the same practice of creation that goes back to the beginning of time,
Uh-huh.
and that we have to understand that we are gifted with two hemispheres, the left brain and the right brain. And sometimes in business, the right brain is not developed enough. And that's why I do what I do,
Hmm.
because that's the side of imagination.
Yes.
And isn't that why scientists like Einstein said imagination is more important than knowledge?
Uh-huh.
I'm saying that they're both important, and that I just am here to make it a fair fight.
Huh. Huh.
So I call myself a right brain ambassador in the left brain world of business.
Yes. Oh, every conversation I've ever had with you, you can just feel that. I mean, talking to you is different than other people, and it's just that point.
Oh, thank you.
It's so true. It's the creativity and thoughtfulness and deepness and all the things you're saying. I mean, I feel like I'm just repeating you, but the imagination, the humanity, the experience. I mean, flipping the lens to the other person, and I, there's someone really close in my life that's that person you described in the meeting that's quiet. And you need to draw them out, but once they share, their thoughts are so profound,
Yeah,
so different than what anybody else is thinking, but they just need a little encouragement, and it just takes things in such different directions and adds so much richness to the conversation and the thoughts and the I mean just taking the time to pull that out of people rather than the people that are just first to give responses and drive conversations. I mean, the conductor analogy is it's just so spot on.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um, it really has been a great guide for me throughout my life. Um, but on my journey in New York City, I had the great fortune to find a way to meet someone that really struck a chord in me when I was a student. And he gave a lecture, and it was called The Taste of the Marketplace. And if people don't remember what I've said here, that's okay. I'd rather um, make them feel something, because when you feel something, it sticks with you. Um, we can read data till the cows come home and spreadsheets and all of that. Um, but it reminds me of a quote by a poet laureate, Maya Angelou.
Hmm.
And she said, people will not remember what you have said. They will not remember what you have done,
Mhm.
but they will remember how you made them feel. And boy, that's sticky stuff there, right?
Yes.
It gets into the soul. So I had the great fortune to meet a mentor of mine. Um, and he gave me such an incredible education. And if people don't remember anything, please remember this name, and his name is Gene Moore. Gene Moore was an artist who came to Manhattan in 1935, and he only had $15 in his pocket.
Huh.
All he wanted to do was to be another Monet, another Picasso. But he had to find work, and he found work in the windows.
Huh.
And he fell in love with the windows because he looked at the windows as a three-dimensional canvas
Hmm.
where he could tell stories. And the gallery was always open to the public. And he had garnered so many incredible um, passerbys along his long career. And Gene Moore was responsible for some of the rituals that we see on the great walking streets throughout the world, which was the curtains. His first assignment in the windows, they told him that he had to put 6 rolling racks of furs in the windows. And then he had to put price tags on it. And then he had to flood it with light. And he took the assignment and he said, "Do you mind if I do it at night after the store closes?"
Huh.
And this is a sign of good manners in everything that we do. And this is a life lesson. Um, when asked, "Why would you want to do that?" And he said, "It's not polite to change in public."
Huh. Huh.
And curtains coming down
Hmm.
is a ritual, you know? And it was Gene who that night decided to tell a story, not to stick merchandise in the window. And he was willing to sacrifice his job if that's what would happen on the inside. But his number one mission,
Hmm.
and anybody that deals with the customer, is that you're in service of them. And as a leader, you're in service first of the employee,
Hmm.
because
Yes.
the employee is the precious interface to the customer. And that is where the results are made, not in the boardroom. I've been there,
Uh-huh.
not in C-levels. You can your job is to give them the tools, the concepts that they need to be successful as they develop relationships with customers. And if you do that well, it's a good chance that you'll develop a long-lasting, lifelong relationship with your audience. And that's why we're here. That's why we're in business. So it was Gene Moore that had a tremendous influence on all of us, and anybody that goes into the creative areas of business in stores, at retail, hospitality. You are standing on his shoulders.
Huh.
So I got to meet him. I had a wonderful working relationship with him. Uh, and he went, because of those rituals, was hired by a retail prince named Walter Hoving, who happened to own Bonwood Teller.
Huh.
And he had just completed the acquisition of it. And he said, "I want to meet the man that's creating this anticipation as the curtains are unveiled every Thursday morning." So the
Huh.
curtains would go down on Wednesday evening, and there would be a raising of the curtains at the opening of business the next day to set the table for the weekend business.
Huh.
And what was happening is that women were flooding the windows Thursday morning,
Hmm.
anxiously awaiting, like they were in a theater, for the
Hmm.
windows to go, the curtains to be raised. And Hoving at Bonwood Teller, Gene was at Bergdorf Goodman, was furious.
Huh.
And he said, "I want to meet the man that that's doing this, and I want to hire him because he's stealing all of my customers. Now, mind you, I'm going to tie this together. Gene, that night, when he had to do the fur windows, became a curator, and he selected only one representative from every category of fur.
Huh.
He went to the liquor store and found empty bottles of Dom, of champagne of all sorts. He went to the crystal department and got two crystal champagne glasses.
Huh.
Went to women's accessories and
Oh.
got strands of pearls and necklaces, and a pair of pumps from women's shoe department that would go with the fur.
Huh.
And rather than flooding the light, he went to a hardware store and bought screens. And he created pin spots for light to go through and a horizon line behind it. So foreground, middle
Huh.
ground, background, just like a painter, creating dimension. And that next morning, Mr. Goodman, as he walks the floors and checks the windows every day, was furious. And he called his associate and he said, I want the person that did these windows because I personally want to fire him. So this humble man from Birmingham, Alabama, walks into this towering penthouse office. And Mr. Goodman says to him, what gave you the audacity to defy our orders? Top down, right? Boom.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, I just wanted to meet you so that I could personally escort you out of the building. And this humble man has the courage to say to him, well, Mr. Goodman, that is your prerogative. However, wouldn't it be okay if you just wait and see what the customers have to say about it?
Huh.
And he was struck by that. And he said, okay, I'll give you that. I'll give you a week. Let's see what happens.
Mm.
Next week, he's called to his office and he has a stack of letters on his desk. And Goodman stands up and he said, how did you know? And he said what I said to you earlier, because I have followed this mission my entire career. He said, well, first thing, I have to please myself, Mr. Goodman.
Huh.
Secondly, I have to please my public.
Mm.
And third, if management happens to like it, it will merely be a coincidence. Talk about standing in your own truth
Yes.
and courage. And that saved his job, and he went on to create Windows. And that's what caused Walter Hoving to hire this guy to go to Bonwit Teller. And at that point, he gave a condition to Hoving. And he said, I know who you are in the elite of society, and I know your wife is the member of high society. And I want you to know that I will never work for her art gallery, and I will never design her Christmas tree. And Hoving looked at him and he said, why? And he said, because my job now is to hire other artists that are looking for work, because that gave me this gift. And during Gene's career, not only did he create 5,000 windows, but
Oh.
he hired some of the most incredible artists along the way because of his style. Andy Warhol, who came to New York in 1951, worked with Gene.
That's incredible.
Jasper Johns,
Yes.
Robert Rauschenberg, Jim Rosenquist, Salvador Dali, Raymond Loewy,
Oh
and
my
the list
word.
goes on and on and on. So, can one person have an impact?
Huh.
You're goddamn right they can.
Yes. Oh my word. You got- That's incredible.
And it was Gene Moore. One day, he decided to step down from Tiffany and Company
Hmm.
at the age of 84 and a half after celebrating his 39th year.
Oh.
And when the announcement was made, that main floor, and I had the great pleasure to be one of those people, was flooded to say goodbye. And the chairman at the time, William Cheney, got up there on the podium and he said, Gene, please, can't you make it an even 40? And Gene immediately responded by saying, oh, Mr. Cheney, you know how I hate even numbers. And he said, besides, my most favorite number is 13. I don't know why they don't put the 13th floor in hotels, but they
Uh-huh.
should, because it's an odd but unique number. And it's my favorite number. And when you times it by 3, it's 39. So that's why I'm leaving. And he said, what are you going to do? He said, I'm going to go off and create other things on a larger scale. And that's when we started the Gene Moore Group. And I worked with him till the day he died.
Oh.
Um, and um, just an incredible man who had so much influence. He was asked by Sir John Gielgud to design Ides of March in the West End in London
Oh.
because of what his best friend was Audrey Hepburn.
Oh my
Uh,
jeez.
and he used to drink scotch with Vivian Lee. And, it's just, but
Oh.
he was so quiet, but it was the windows that attracted them. And one day, Paul Taylor from the Paul Taylor Ballet Company asked him um, to design costumes for his new ballet. And he said, why would you ask a display man in the
Mhm.
windows to do that? And he said, oh, I've seen your work. You can design anything.
Huh.
So that's the influence he had, not just on me, but so many others. And I'm having lunch with him one day,
Yeah.
and a man who he's known in the business, Robert Kenzer, who had a executive search firm called Kenzer Corps
Huh.
out of Manhattan. And we're having lunch, and Robert Kenzer says to Gene, I've got this search that nobody seems to want, and it ended up on my doorstep, and it's a company called Best Buy.
Huh. Huh.
And Gene and I looked at each other and we said, what's Best Buy? We're jaded. Uh,
Yes.
and he tells us, and he said, I've got to put some candidates out there. And I thought maybe, Gene, you might, and James, you might want to talk to them. And Gene looked me in the eye and he said, look at my crippled hands here with debilitating arthritis.
Mm.
I don't travel well anymore. But James, if somebody wants to talk to you, you have to go and meet them. It's just good manners.
Huh. Oh.
So he was the one that guided me to Best Buy. And this is what this story's all about. You have to allow life to take care of itself. People may see something in you that you never imagined. I had no idea what Best Buy was, but they asked me to go to the new concept store that they were opening and to give them an analytical report. And I said to Robert, you know me. I am not capable of giving an analytical report, but I will, as a customer, give my observations.
Mm.
And that's what led me to meet such an enthusiastic leader. And I went there with one slide and I thought, well, this will be a short meeting because I'll be on the next plane back to New York. And little did I know it was the opening of a new chapter in my career, because his courage, Gene's courage, allowed me to understand what a leadership stand is all about. I took this one slide and I went and I was in the boardroom with the founder, his CEO, and all of his direct reports. And I put the slide up there and I said, congratulations, you're in the business of going out of business. And it was met with tremendous resistance and silence.
Uh-huh.
Nobody was willing to say anything. But I was looking at the founder and his face was getting red and there was a vein popping out of his forehead. And I
Imagine.
said, I think I'm on to something here.
Uh-huh.
And he said, what gives you the audacity to say something like that? It was almost an echo of what Goodman
Yeah,
was saying to Gene Moore.
I can hear it. Yes.
You know,
Oh,
that gave
oh.
me the courage to stand in my own truth. And I said, it's very simple. You're designing a store, which I beg you not to put on the market. Why? Because when I walked into the store, the aisles were flooded with low gross margin pallets of merchandise.
Mm-hmm.
I could not and did not know where to go. And a young man comes up to me and says, sir, can I get you a shopping cart? And I remember saying to him immediately, what the hell am I going to do with that? I could hurt myself. I couldn't get into the departments. And then on top of it, they hung this sign, which was a campaign slogan. And it said, designing a store with you in mind. Now
Mm.
that's a great idea.
Mm.
And that is why I said, um, this concept is going to be death on arrival, because it's not inviting customers in. And those aisles are the highways for the customers, and
Right.
they must always be open. And they must be able to see within 3 to 5 seconds, window design principle number one, where things are. So you don't have a good signage package, but you have this billboard that's announcing that you've designed this store for the customer. And that's all wrong. It's just wrong. And you can't be making any money because you've put low gross margin merchandise on the main aisle. You may be making your vendors happy, but you're certainly not making your customers happy. And that was also met with silence for a bit. And then somebody pounded their fist on the table and said, finally, somebody comes here to tell us the truth.
Oh,
And that was Bradbury Anderson.
really?
Brad Anderson. And we had a conversation after that. And I met somebody that was so enthusiastic and so humble and said, we don't have your kind of capability. And as I am past this baton, I need to invite the world to Best Buy so that Best Buy can be a member in the world. And I, at that time, said, sign me up. I didn't come to the company, I came to the leader.
Yes.
And I knew that this is my wife. She said, women are selfless and
Yes, they
willing to
are.
sacrifice.
Mm.
And we are so selfish as men
Mhm.
and
Yes.
so self-centered. But she
Mm.
had made a statement to me. She said, you know, James, you could probably make more of a contribution in a company like this with a leader like this than you can in the jaded high-end elite experience of department store retailing.
Uh-huh.
And when I heard her say that, how could one say no?
Mm.
And she was willing to leave New York. We never thought of leaving New York, but she was willing to do it um, for something way beyond me. But she knew that the education that I had would help this company. And that's what brought me to Minneapolis. It's what brought me to Best Buy. And that led me to other pathways because of Brad. Um, and the importance of having a mentor and a leader, I can't emphasize enough to anybody listening. Just follow them. They see something that you cannot see. And trust it. Just go for it, as I did, because I never thought that I would leave New York.
Mm.
I never thought that this could last. As a matter of fact, there were people inside Best Buy that were making bets that I'd be gone in a year. And Brad warned me, he said, the culture is going to try and eat you up and spit you out, James. But I can't help you there. You're going to have to figure it out yourself. And that was fair warning. And boy, did I confront it because I saw the competition of cultures within a big organization. Now, mind you, when I came to Best Buy, there were only 275 stores. They were doing 7 billion in sales, and their bottom line profit was only $1 million.
Oh my word.
Right. Why? They were pushing SKUs. They were
Mm.
not thinking about a technology wardrobe. And it was the fashion education
Uh-huh.
putting collections together that enabled me to say, this is going, when things are put together for people, they're going to buy the experience, not the SKU.
Mm-hmm.
And let's face it, all of their boxes were boxes.
Right, right.
And all of their products were just boxes, and people couldn't see it, feel it, touch it. And they certainly didn't know at that time, 1998, how to put things together.
Yeah, right.
So that was my cue. And I had to confront the store field, the store group with the home office group. Neither one wanted to do such a thing. So I had to test it, and I had to test it quickly to prove the concept. And that's what design thinking is all about. First, empathy.
Mm.
We always start with empathy.
Mm.
Why? I'm interested in finding where the pain is as a designer. Show me the pain. The empathy phase will inform us on what the real problem is that we're trying to define. And that's the define phase.
Huh.
The define phase informs the ideation phase. And that's where there's no such thing as a bad idea. and that the leader brings multidisciplinary talent in an integrated fashion. People from the stores, people from the home office, from every discipline that takes this product called a store experience to the marketplace. And it was rough waters, but I knew the hardest thing is getting a concept to the marketplace because they'll try and kill it on the inside. It's kind of like an organism that's a big organism, and you inject a new cell. What happens is the organism eats it up and spits it out. And that's what I was dealing with. And for everybody that's listening out there that's serving customers, that's your number one job. Because without a great employee experience, there is no customer experience. It will merely be folly. Brad Anderson was amazing. I'm still in touch with him. He gives me great counsel in this independent world that I live in now. He was the one that introduced me. He said, James, I know your story. I'm going to offer you, because our founder didn't want to do this. But now that I'm CEO, I want to have a place at the table in the arts community of Minneapolis. And he said, you're first, James. I want all of my officers to serve on a private board as well as a public board. It will be a great leadership lesson and education for them. But first, we got to get some people on these boards. And he said, I'll give you a choice. You can have the Guthrie, you can have the Walker, or you can have the Minnesota Orchestra. Talk to all of their presidents, and they're willing to have an interview process with some candidates. He said, which one would you like? And I said, well, I'm a failed conducting major. Like another crack at the orchestra.
Yes.
And that's what opened the door. Met with the president. We talked about the audience experience, and that was what did it. And I got on that committee. I met the chairman, and he had a major influence on me and introduced me. I spent 10 years on the board there, by the way.
Oh, wow.
You have to step off after 10 years for rotation purposes.
Okay.
And he introduced me to another CEO. Didn't tell me who it was, but he introduced me to Sally Smith. Little did I know that this attorney, Warren Mack at Frederickson and Byron, was an investor in Buffalo Wild Wings. I mean, you know, the dichotomy of that is just amazing. And he was great friends with Ken Dahlberg, the famous World War II fighting ace. And he was the major investor, and they had just gone public. And it was Sally that convinced me to join the board. She said, when I asked why me, and she said, because I love the concept work that you've just done with women. And we don't have any women on our board, but I need a different voice from the private equity people and the financial people that sit on the board, because I'm tired of having the same conversation. I need a new voice. And I think that you could be the catalyst in attracting women to our board as well. And you had me at hello there. You know, I said, I'm all in. And she said, I want you to first start on the audit committee, because that's where the truth is. And sure enough, it was a lesson learned. 2 years later, Ken Dahlberg got up in front of all of us and he said, I'm just celebrating my 90th birthday. Um, and I bought myself a new plane. They won't let me take off or land, but I can take over the controls once in the air. So I want to go out flying. And he said to Warren Mack, who was the executive chair uh, of the executive committee, and he looked at Warren and he said, Warren, don't go out and hire a fancy executive search firm. No offense, Kip.
No offense taken. I feel this. Yes.
and and when Warren asked why, he said, because the answer lives within this room.
Mm,
And he said goodbye. We made him chairman emeritus, and Warren was charged with finding a replacement. And a month and a half later, I get this phone call because that needs board approval, right?
sure. Right.
And Warren calls me and he said, "Hey, James, good news. We found somebody, and the board's all in." And I said, "Warren, what the hell? Am I chopped liver? Who is it?" And he said, "Oh, that's easy. The reason you don't know is because it's you."
Oh.
And I remember the first thing I said to him was, "Do you guys know what you're doing?" And he said, "James, don't underestimate yourself.
Mm.
I have an ability to bring people together, and that's what we need."
Oh.
My wife kicked me in the ass. I told her that story, and she said, "There you go again.
Yes.
You underestimate yourself." And Warren said, "Robert's rules, we can teach you that stuff.
Right.
We can't teach what you have."
Oh.
And I spent 10 years as chairman through some extraordinary times, and we created a new customer experience for sports fans. That was our center. And hopefully we did a good enough job. And my time was up in 2017, which has introduced me to a whole new world, literally, um, as a creative strategist in the world of design thinking and independent consulting. So there, I've wasted all of your time on this story.
Oh.
Probably spoke too much, which I usually do because I'm so passionate about it. But I just want other people out there to know that this can happen to anybody.
That was incredible. Oh, absolutely incredible.
All right, what do you have to say, Kip? I'm tired of talking.
I mean, just all the people in your life seeing your potential. I mean, everybody. I mean, but you're the common denominator. I mean, you're the one that had all this within you and brought it out and served other people. And I I can speak from the Buffalo Wild Wings experience. I mean, that is the best sports fan experience I've ever had. It, uh, it's just remarkable when you talk about the focus on your employees and ultimately the customer and how so many organizations and people give lip service to that. But
Yeah,
and I think everyone that's been listening here, when you hear it from someone that's real, it's so different. And people can, in an instant, feel that. Talk about my Angelou. I mean, you can feel it when you talk that it's real. And you're brilliant at it, obviously, but just, I mean, multiple times you like brought me to tears just telling these stories and how I mean, the power of story and
Oh, yeah.
just mentors. It's absolutely remarkable. Maybe we've talked about culture and you touched on that and weave that in there. How have you intentionally tried to create culture as you're building customer experiences?
A good question.
Mm.
Peter Drucker once said, that famous futurist from the 20th century, culture eats strategy for breakfast.
Mhm.
So true. And that often organizations are so quick to go to strategy without thinking about the impact that that strategy may have on the culture of the company, as opposed to leaning into culture and knowing that there are two faces to it. So here's a real life example. Since design has to work across the organization, I had the great fortune to have a great relationship with the chief human resource officer in the company and another person who was developing the women's leadership forum at Best Buy. And it was a year into Brad being the CEO. And the chief human resource officer reached out to me and she said, James, I I need you to be a sponsor with me. And I said, sure, how can I help? And she said, I found these ladies, these incredible ladies that just had a major impact on me just through one meeting. And I want to bring them in. This is full circle now. They're from a company called Gap International.
Mm.
I didn't know them. They are a performance based consulting firm that actually does what the other consulting firms do not do. And that is get in and do the work with the people in the organization rather than come in, tell you, repackage what's already in the organization, call it a new strategy, present it to management, and then be off. I call that, and I'm not going to name names, I, I, but the usual suspects. They come in, they borrow your watch to tell you what time it is. And at the end of it, they've walked away with your watch.
Uh-huh.
Um, this firm was not about that at all. So I met with these ladies, and that's how I got introduced to Gap International. And we created an, in order to bring the gap between the stores and the home office, we created a program with Gap leading it called Emerging Leaders.
Mm.
And that program brought people from every pocket in the organization, general managers from stores, buyers, creative services people, marketing, operations, and it eliminated rank.
Huh.
Everybody was equal. And my contribution was when we have these workshops, make sure that we have nothing in the space but round tables. And they asked me why. And I said, because a round table has no beginning or no end.
Mm.
And if everybody's going to be equal, the round table is the metaphor. And we created these round table sessions. And it had such a tremendous impact. And it brought people together because I didn't know the story of a GM. I
Right.
didn't know their journey. And everybody got to tell their story. And that to me was the most remarkable thing. Um, And we did it and it brought us together as an organization. It really had an impact. And when I set sail on my independent career, I thought, I'm going to write them a letter and tell them. And this is an article that I wrote on mentorship. If you've ever had the great fortune to have a mentor, write them a letter and tell them what kind of an impact they had on you. They will be so grateful because they never get that kind of feedback.
Mm-hmm.
So anybody out there, sit down and write a letter to whomever it was in your life, whether it's family or a boss, anyone, and tell them how much they meant to you. And they will be so thrilled. I have gotten such great feedback from all of the letters that I've written. And it was because of Gap International that brought out their mission in life is transforming organizations, transforming the world. That's a big idea,
Yes.
right? And the people there are absolutely so special and incredible because they make you feel, they wake something up inside of you. And that's why doing that at Best Buy, I think to me, that was my biggest contribution. But like all things, the CEO who sponsored it actually went through the courses, decided to leave at the end of 2009. And he was the reason I came to Best Buy. And that was the reason why, knowing what the management succession was, I guess things have an automatic in the system. And the chairman of the board, the founder, wanted his salesperson protege to take the helm. And that's when I knew you always have to know when it's time to move on,
Yes. Right.
right? There's a
Yes.
moving on chapter in everybody's life. And know that that door may be closing, but it is the keystone to what comes next. And it opens up new possibilities. So that emerging leaders program brought out an even better leader in me. And now that I'm out there on my own, I'm a one-man show. I want to take this on the road somehow, and I want to have an impact on other organizations. And quite frankly, the other life lesson I've learned, never be afraid to ask for help. So I will be so bold right now to you, Kip. I'd like some help. I want to take this thing to better places, whether it's inside a company or outside. It doesn't matter to me. I want to do this for a larger amount of people. And kind of stuck.
Mm-hmm.
Although I do have Gap International as my number one client, and I absolutely love the work, but I have the capacity for more. So sorry, it's a selfish request.
No, you have my my excuse me, my commitment to do anything I can to help you. And I think once our listeners have listened to this episode, I would be shocked if opportunities don't come your way, because uh, just who you are as a man, as a leader, as a design thinker. I mean, by people listening to this and hopefully sharing this episode with their friends and their colleagues, I mean, I would be absolutely flabbergasted if opportunities don't come your way just from this episode alone. But again, you have my personal commitment to share your story and share you with anybody where I think you can add value. And that was really kind of one of my closing questions was, how are you working to build lasting legacy through your work? Obviously you've shared it throughout, but you want to share any more on just thinking about legacy as your mentor did for you and had such a profound impact on your life and the lives of so many great artists?
You know, I'm not here to think about legacy.
Hmm.
And after all, Gene was 88 years old and still working.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I have a runway in front of me, and
Mm-hmm.
my story's not finished. There are other chapters, and I look at this as a breakthrough. Just
Mm-hmm.
having this conversation and meeting you and understanding who you are and your enthusiasm for people and your background. I just feel kindred to that. And Gene never thought about legacy, but the impact of it and what he did is a tribute to him.
Yes.
And, I remember I had the good fortune to meet Steve Jobs
Mm.
because we were putting Apple stores within the
Oh,
best.
sure. Yes.
And I remember I wanted to go to that meeting with the merchant group who was leading the charge. And they met, they went through their introductions, Jobs on his side, and our chief merchant on his side. And when it was done, Jobs said, "Where's your design leader?" I have mine.
Huh.
Um, and the merchant said, "Oh, we'll bring him in when we need him." And Jobs stood up and he said, "You guys just don't get it, do you?
Huh.
Design goes through everything." And this meeting is adjourned. So I suggest that you get on the phone and you call this person, whoever it may be, and have them come out here. And then we'll have this session. And he scolded that merchant.
Huh.
I got the phone call. "James, you were right. You should be here. I need you to get on the next plane to Cupertino." And I said, "Why?" And then he told me the story. And I said, "Thank you, Steve Jobs."
Yes.
So that's where I learned about a big goal. I heard Jobs said, "I'm here." I think he was asked the question, "What is your mission here?" And he said, "Oh, I'm here to put a ding in the universe." The bite out of the apple. I think he did that.
I would
But he
say
wasn't,
so.
he wasn't talking about legacy
Mm-hmm.
because, it's not done. It's
Right.
just not done until it's time for us to go. And one thing that my father taught me, he said, "Remember this, James, we're never going to get out of this mess alive."
Truth. Oh, oh, that may be the best legacy answer I've had in our episode so far. So thank you for that. That is the truth.
With pleasure,
Mm.
always.
Well, this has been absolutely marvelous. Every time we talk and have a conversation, I'm glad we're able to share it with listeners here. I think I've been here's every time we've talked, but you warm my heart and just again the humanity of who you are and looking into the soul of employees and customers and me as we talk selfishly. It's you can feel again back to Maya Angelou when you're with people that make you feel something. it moves you, and it
Yeah, it
makes
does.
it
It
moves the
moves
world.
it moves me, it also moves me,
Hmm.
especially when I get out in front of audiences and do keynote addresses.
Oh,
And I go through the images that tell the story so that they can see it, feel it, and touch it. It's and when I hear them say to me afterwards that it was inspirational, that's the greatest gift right there. I'll do it for free. I don't care. It just, that's it.
I believe you. I think everybody listening believes you and can feel it. So thank you.
Yep, I can't thank you enough. I
Oh,
mean, from our first conversation, I just felt kindred to who you are and what you stand for and what you're doing. And we need people like you doing it and doing it on behalf of people, and bringing people together. We need more of that in the world instead of the destructive nature that we see. Our imagination, our creativity, I still believe is far greater than the destruction that we see in the world.
1,000,000% yes. Oh, maybe we'll end on that note. That is a positive and a high note. Well, thank you very much. Please share this show. Please share this episode. If you have opportunities for James, come to him. All of his information will be in the show notes here, or feel to reach out to me and I'll connect you directly with James. But thank you very much, James. It goes without saying, and it's an understatement, but a honor and a privilege and a pleasure to have you on Capitalist Culture. Thank you so much.
And right back at you, Kip. I'm so glad to know you.
Oh,
Thank you.
thank you.